Hi everyone, how are you all? I'm sure you all are good at your places. And today we're going to start the chapter number 3, Social Institution, Continuity and Change. But before I proceed to start this particular chapter, I want to discuss a few things with all of you. Look, I have taught you the previous chapter in such a way that I'm sure now you understood or you have understood everything regarding that particular chapter. And I'm sure and I hope that you are doing all the textual questions and also making notes of that previous chapter. Is that clear? And soon I'm going to check your notes and your textual questions very time in the future. Okay. So without wasting any time, let's start the chapter number 3. That is social institution and continuity and change. All right. But before I proceed you to start this particular chapter, I just want to tell you what is social institution. Then only we can proceed further to understand about this particular chapter. All right. So what is social institution? Social institution is something that is established organization. Look, when I say organization, it means that it has certain rules, regulation, practices that people do. And when those rules and regulation practices are organized and well settled and people are also following that it becomes established organization. So any institution that's there in the society is what social institution is all about, right? It can be an institution, it can be your educational institution that is providing you education. So what your educational institution is doing, it is catering the need of education, right? And what is your medical institutions are doing, they're providing you the health and medical facilities. What is your transport institution is doing, it is providing you transport, right? What is your Bollywood doing, Bollywood is providing you entertainment, right? So we have got a lot of institutions in the society, right? But in this chapter we're going to study about only 3 institutions, and that are in the form of caste institution, tribe institution, and third is your family and kinship institution. Now you know what is family, but I don't know you know about kinship or not. Kinship is something that is related to your blood relation, right? you anyone can come in your family, but someone who is attached to you by your blood relation comes in your kinship system, right? Your spouse can come in your family, but remember that she or he is not connected to you by blood relation. So people say it very wrong that our spouse come in our kinship. No, our spouse only comes in the family. So you need to understand these minor things, these subtle things to understand this particular chapter. So now I'm gonna share my PPT with all of you that I've made regarding this particular chapter. So I'm sure you all will cooperate me in the class, and since you are in 12th standard, I expect some seriousness and some I want all of you to be enough vigilant in the class to understand me, right? And I expect seriousness and some hard work from all of you, because this is the right time to do that. If you will not consider this as a right time, then I don't think you will get a better time than this to show your seriousness and to do something good for your life. Okay, so I'm starting to share the PPT with all of you. Okay, so I'm gonna share my PPT. Okay. And look, I've made my PPT in such a way that you will understand everything regarding this particular chapter, right? Just like you have understood the previous chapter. Okay. And I'm sure you are making your notes and also doing textual questions, of the previous chapter, because I'm going to check it soon, anytime soon in the future. All right. Okay. So this is the PPT, right? I'm sure my PPT is visible on your screens, on everyone's screen, in fact. Okay, so we're going to start the chapter number 3, social institution, continuity and change. And I've already told you that what a social institution is all about, right? And we're going to study about 3 institutions in this particular chapter. And look what is written: social institution, continuity and change. Continuity, some institutions are in the continuing phase, some institutions are undergoing different changes. So we're going to understand about the continuity and the change that happens in a particular institution. So we're going to start with the first institution, that is a caste institution. All right, so this is the number 2nd slide. Look, this is a simple flow chart or kind of a diagram that I've put in this particular PPT. Social institution, caste, tribe, family and kinship. So we're going to study about these 3 institutions. All right, nothing more than that. Look, when we study the institution of caste, we all know that it has been going on from ages. Like it was there in the past, it was there in the colonial period, means when Britishers were ruling us. So this is what caste and colonialism is all about. And number three is caste in the present. So we have to understand the different phases of caste: caste in the past, caste in the colonial era, and caste in the present as well. All right, so this is what we're going to study. Okay, so going to the third slide, right? Caste. Now, the term caste is derived from the Portuguese word casta, which means pure breed. Pure breed means something that is of pure type, all right? In other words, it also means a group or community of people. Look, there is always a group, there is always a community of people that's there in the caste. Isn't it like that? Yes, it is definitely like that. And look, it's not like we only use one word for the caste. We use two other words as well. That is varna and the other one is jati. All right. Now, what this word varna means? It means color. Varna literally means color. It is the name given to fourfold division of society into Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishya, and Shudras. Look, you got to remember one thing here, that when we talk about varna, this, look at that. This is another word for caste. Varna is another word for a caste. And we understand, when we understand this word varna, then what happens is that we divide our society into four different sections. Number one, Brahmins. Number second, Kshatriyas. Number three, Vaishyas. And number four, Shudras. All right. So you got to remember it, you know, as a student of this particular subject, you got to remember the four sections of our Varna system. All right. So there is another word, Jati. And since we are studying about caste system, I think it becomes extremely important for us to understand about Varna and Jati. It's important for us to understand the difference between these two particular terms. All right. So remember that what I've written here. Varna, this literally means color. I've already told you that. And is a name given to fourfold division. Varna is nothing but a name given to fourfold division of a society. Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishya, Shudras. Nothing else. Okay. This excludes, remember that there are only four groups that I've already told you that. And this excludes a significant section of the population composed of the outcasts. Look, apart from these four sections, we've got another section. And we call that section as outcast group. The groups that are not in any caste. They are out of the caste. Okay, that's the reason we call them outcasts. And those people can be, you know, your foreigners, your slaves, and sometimes they are referred to as fifth category. So if, you know, in exams, if they ask you about what can be the fifth category that is there in the Varna system, then you can say that those people are termed as outcast people. And, you know, the people that come in those outcasts are like foreigners, slaves, and others as well. And remember that Varna is a very particular term that is related to our Indian society only. So Varna is all Indian aggregate classification. Varna system is only there in the Indian society, nowhere else in the world. You got to remember this, all right? So I'm sure you have understood these 3 points regarding Varna. Then we're going to understand the other term, that is, you know, Jati. Now, Jati is something that is very generic term. When I say generic, then it means that something which is unaltered, something which is very, very pure, something that is related to our local, you know, parochial or local kind of, you know, people. So people of the local areas use this particular term, right? And this term is not only used for human beings, but this term also used for animals, plants, for etc., right? So it's much more a broader term, I would say, rather than a Varna. Varna is something that is specific to human beings only, but on the other hand, Jati is something that is not confined to human beings, but they are, you know, used for the other things as well. Animate or inanimate objects, from plants, animals, and for human beings as well. And I've already told you that the institution of caste is, you know, named by two terms, Varna and Jati. So this is also the second point that you are watching on your screens. This word is commonly used to refer the institution of caste in Indian languages. So this word is commonly used to refer or to call institution of caste in Indian languages. Now coming on the third point, I've already told you that Jati is something that is related to our local subcultures only. So locally or regionally, many people use this particular term. So look what is written. Jati is taken to be regional, or it is local classification involving a much more complex system consisting of thousands and even hundreds and thousands of castes and subcastes. Look, when we say Jati, look, what I said in Varna, I told you about only 4 sections, right? Your Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras. But when I say Jati, then it gives to further classification of the castes, and it can lead to, you know, hundreds and thousands of castes, right? Like that. So this is that kind of difference that you got to understand here. Varna only for 4 sections, but on the other hand, Jati for many sections. You know, we further divide Brahmins into a lot of categories, don't we? And we further divide Kshatriyas into different classifications, don't we? In the similar manner, other castes are also divided into many castes. So this is what happens, you know. And so now going to the third particular slide. Now, since we are studying about caste system or the institution of caste, it's important for us to understand the features of caste as well. And when I say features of caste, then you got to understand here is that, look, when I say got to, then it means have to. You know, I have a habit to say got to. So I'm sure you will understand that when I'm saying got to, then it means that have to. So now we're going to talk about features of caste, in which we're going to include rules and regulations of caste. Features, look, you got to understand features, characteristics, rules, and regulations of caste. They all are one and the same thing. You got to understand this particular thing. So when we are studying about features or rules and regulations of caste, then these rules and regulations were very active in the past period. I've already told you that we're going to study the caste system in the past, we're going to study the caste system in the colonial era, and we're going to study the caste system in present as well. And when I'm talking about the features of caste, when I'm talking about the rules and regulations of caste, it's important for us to understand that I'm talking about the caste in the past system. So this is all about the past experience that I'm telling you regarding this particular social institution, right? Now, number one point, look, these regulations and features are extremely vital and extremely important to understand. They are about 6 in numbers. So I'm going to start with the first feature, right? Caste is determined by birth. You got to understand one word here. That is ascribed. Ascribed is a word that is very much different from the word achieved. Ascribed is something that is decided by our birth. Okay, and achieved is something, or this term is something that we achieve after our birth. So there is a lot of difference between achieved word and ascribed word. And caste is something that is determined by birth. A child born into the caste of its parents, a caste is never a matter of choice. Look, it isn't a matter of choice, is it? Can we change our caste? If we are born in a particular caste, can we, you know, move to some other caste? No, it is something that is ascribed. We straight away get our status as ascribed status the moment we're born into this world, don't we? Okay, so it's not a matter of choice. Remember that. One can never change one's caste, leave it, or choose not to join it. Although there are instances where a person may be expelled from a particular caste. So in this point, you just need to remember that caste is something that is determined by birth. Caste is something that is decided by our birth. And this is what ascribed status is all about. You got to remember this term, right? You cannot, you know, understand things in a journal term. You know, for the specification of the subject, we got to understand certain words like ascribed status, endogamous marriage, exogamous marriage, okay, occupation linked with the caste. So we can understand all those terms, all those things in a pretty specific way, you know, according to the subject. That's going to help us, you know, in further understanding of this particular chapter. So I'm sure you have understood the first point. Now talking about this second point. Membership in a caste involves strict rules about marriages. Caste groups are endogamous, that is, marriage is restricted to the members of the same group. The second group talks about the rules and regulations or features that are related to marriage, all right? So what happens? Endogamous marriages are practiced. When I say marriage practices, then it means that a particular person is restricted to marriage to a particular caste. We can't go out, you know, and to marry someone else out of the caste. So this is what strictly followed in the rules and regulations, or used to be followed in the past period. And now times things are changing. Things have changed a lot, in fact, but this used to be there in the past time. All right. So you're gonna understand about this term endogamous marriage. First point was all about ascribed status, and second point is all about your endogamous marriage, and third point is something that is related to your rules regarding food and your food sharing. Okay, so caste membership also involves rules about food and food sharing. What kinds of food may or may not be eaten is prescribed, and who may, you know, share the food is also specified. So what used to happen in the past is that rules and regulations regarding not only marriage, not only birth was there, but regarding your food was also there. So one used to, have a specific kind of food, and from whom he's gonna get it or he's not gonna get it. So it was all decided by the caste. So this was what the third point was all about. Now talking about the fourth point, I'm sure you all are, watching this particular slide on your screens. Okay. So number fourth point, caste were traditionally linked to occupation. So caste were linked to occupation as well. I can give you an example. Look, what used to be there in the past is that when I talk about the Brahmins, they used to do priestly work, something that is related to worship. They used to be teacher as well. And when I talk about the Kshatriyas, they used to be warriors. They used to be kings. They used to be administrators, right? They used to, control their empire, control their dynasties and all those things. When I talk about the third category, third section, the Varna system after Brahmin, Kshatriyas, and Shudras. Shudras use Vaishyas, number third section. Vaishyas used to be traders, right? They used to trade a lot. They used to do their businesses and they were involved in trading system, all right? They used to be merchant. You use this particular word merchant for the Vaishyas. And Shudras used to work in the fields of landlords, used to do some, cleaning practices, used to make pots, and they used to be artisans, they used to be craftsmen, they used to, work manually, used to use their hands for doing certain things. So they were craftsmen, right? So these were the occupations that were related to the different sections of the society when I talk about the Varna system. So I'm sure you understood the fourth point as well when I talk about that occupation was linked with the caste. First point was regarding ascribed status. Second point is regarding your endogamous marriage. Third point is regarding your food and food sharing. And fourth point obviously regarding to the occupation. Now I'm going to talk about the fifth point that's there on the next slide. All right. So caste also involves subdivisions within themselves. I've already told you this particular point in which section, in Jati section, that castes are further being divided by many people, right? So there are hundreds and thousands of castes that are already divided in India. Okay, and look, there are about more than 3,000 subcastes that are there in the India. So it is something that is specific to our Indian society. Indian society only. That's why the needed arise, to understand this particular institution of caste. So what we call it, when there is further division or further segmentation of the caste, we call it as segmental organization. So castes are further divided into many castes. So this is what segmental organization is all about, and this is what fifth point was all about. And I'm going to teach you the sixth point, right? Caste involves a system consisting of many castes arranged in a hierarchical of ranks and statuses. In theory, every person has a caste, and every caste has a specific place in the hierarchy of all castes. While the hierarchy method of many castes, particularly in the middle ranks, may vary from region to region, there is always a hierarchy. I've already told you about the hierarchy of the caste, like Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, Shudras, and I've already put this flow chart or the kind of diagram in the slide so that you can get the best and comprehensive understanding about the hierarchy. It's important to remember that hierarchy is always shown like that. Top, there top to bottom, how things are arranged. You got to see and understand these things. And I've already discussed a lot within so much less time with all of you, and I'm sure you all understanding everything. Okay, so these were about 6 rules, regulations or features or characteristics of caste system. And this was what used to happen in the past, and I'm sure you have understood everything regarding this particular feature. Okay, so this is what used to happen. Look, there is another concept, but before I teach you about this particular concept, purity and pollution, I want to discuss a few things with all of you. Look, when we study these kind of concepts, we got to remain neutral. Look, I can't think like I belong to a certain caste and I have to talk like specific to a certain caste. I can't do that. When we are studying about these particular institutions, we got to remain neutral. We have to feel like we belong to no caste. We don't have to involve our emotions in it. So I'm sure you will not involve your emotions. In fact, you will try to understand, what this system used to be, because we got to understand what caste used to be in the past. That's it. We don't have to involve our emotions into this, right? We got to, remain neutral in understanding these concepts. Now, there used to be a concept of pollution and purity. Now, when I say pollution and purity, then you got to understand one thing there. Purity was something that is related to spiritual purity. Purity was something that is related to ritual purity. People used to think that people who belong to the higher caste, they were pure, and people who were not, who were in their lower caste, when they were spreading pollution. So they used to be a concept of purity and pollution. And remember that it is something that is related to our ritual purity. That is something that is related to our connection with the God, right? People used to think it like that in the past. So it can connotates means it gives you the meaning regarding ritual purity. Now the hierarchical ordering of caste is based on the distinction between purity and pollution. So apart from that hierarchy, this concept also comes out. This is a division between something believed to be closer to the sacred, thus connoting ritual purity, and something believed to be distant from or opposed to the sacred. Look, here we are trying to connect certain section of society, giving them sacred meaning, and certain section of the society we are not giving sacred meaning to it. So this is how the concept of pollution and purity came out of this particular institution of caste. And look, I've added a particular question to the next slide. You're going to see that on your screen. Write a note on pollution and purity. Hierarchical order of caste is based on the concept of purity and pollution. You already know that hierarchical order of caste was something that is related to concept of purity and pollution. Pure is sacred, ritually pure, whereas polluted is profane. Look, the opposite word of sacred is profane. Sacred is something that is considered pure, but profane is something that was not considered pure as far as our ritual aspect is concerned. So that's what used to happen in the institution of caste in the past. Ritually pure have high status while impure have low status. So status were also attached with the purity concept and pollution concept, right? So I'm sure you have understood this particular concept as well. You can text me if you are facing any kind of problem or facing any kind of difficulty in understanding me. You can text me in the chat box. Okay, you've got that option. If you are muted, that doesn't mean your doubts won't be addressed. They will be addressed definitely, and your doubts are of paramount importance. Remember that. And I'm not going to compromise on your doubt for the smoothness of my class. I would never like to do that. Your doubts are very important for me, and I'm here to clear your doubts regarding these things. Okay, so we're gonna understand now caste and colonialism. I'm sure you've understood everything regarding caste, that how it used to be in the past. Now we're gonna understand caste and colonialism. So we're gonna understand this particular concept in terms of how it used to be in the colonial period, how it used to be when Britishers were ruling us. There were a lot of changes that we experienced as a nation when Britishers were there in our society. So it becomes a very, very important concept. Look, it becomes extremely important steps or extremely important component part to understand when we talk about caste or when we relate caste with the colonialism. Look what happens when Britishers came in India. We underwent major changes, in the caste. There were major changes that, we experienced as a nation in the caste system. So when Britishers came to India, they were actually shocked. They were shocked by the untouchability because they had no experience like that in their lives. So they were shocked by the untouchability, and they were even shocked by the number of subcastes, because I don't think apart from India or anywhere in the world, such large amount of castes, exist anywhere in the world. So they were shocked by the two things, right? Untouchability and number of humongous castes that used to be there in our society. So they were shocked with these two things. So they decided to bring a lot of changes in the society, especially in the institution of caste. So what happens? You got to remember it point by point. Look, I'm just left with 10 minutes. It's already giving me the indication that your class is going to end in 10 minutes. So I'll try my level best to, to get most of this 10 minutes. Okay. So number one point here is that the institution of caste underwent major changes during the colonial period. I've already told you that. Second point, when the Britishers came to India, they were shocked by the two things, untouchability and number of subcastes. Number three thing, there was a particular person, Britisher, and his name was Herbert Richley. What did he do? He conducted census. He conducted census in 1901, in which he tried to collect the data regarding the caste, because he wanted to. All the Britishers, not only he, but all the Britishers wanted to understand the classification of the caste. So for that, they needed to do the census, and that's what they exactly did in 1901 when Herbert Richley he conducted the census in order to sort, in order to collect information regarding social hierarchy that was there in the society, that was there in the terms of caste system. Okay, so this was what the third point was all about. Overall, scholars feel that this kind of direct attempt to count caste and to officially record caste system changed the institution itself. Before this kind of intervention, caste identities had been much more fluid and less rigid. Once they began to be counted and recorded, caste began to take on a new life. Look, what happened here is that before Britishers, there were no records of caste. So once, you know, the records started, you know, formulating or started, you know, forming by the Britishers, what happened there is that, you know, the caste become even more rigid, because then people start recognizing that yes, this particular person belongs to this caste, this particular belongs to this caste. So there was a, you know, very specific and rational and scientific classification that Britishers did, you know, when they came in the India. So by the census, the caste even, you know, became more, you know, prone to change, right? So it actually happened during the Britishers' time. That's the reason I was telling you that it is a very important thing to, you know, for all of you to understand this. Now, Britishers also came with a land revenue settlement. Look, when I say land revenue settlement, it means that, you know, different castes have different kind of ownerships of land. So what happens is that they came up with land revenue settlement. It was a kind of law, it was kind of a legislation in which they gave legal recognition to the upper caste people to collect revenue from the land. And what is revenue? When I say revenue, here revenue means produce of land. You know, whatever the farmers, the peasants were collecting from the land, they used to give it to the certain people of the upper caste, and then those upper people caste used to give all that produce of the caste to the Britishers. So they came up with the land revenue settlement, all right? And land revenue settlement, you know, brought, you know, further change in the institution of caste. Okay, so now another point, the Government of India Act 1935, you know, it was also important as I would say, as the scholars felt that the record of the, you know, caste that Britishers were doing brought a lot of change in the society. In this similar way, land revenue settlement also brought a lot of change in the caste system. Now we're going to understand the Government of India Act 1935. Now what happens is that because of you know, Government of India Act 1935, scheduled tribes and scheduled castes, they came into being. You know, British government gave them legal recognition, and these two terms came out of Government of India Act 1935. Earlier there used to be no scheduled caste, earlier there used to be no scheduled tribes. People were not classified like that. But Government of India Act, when it was passed, it gave legal recognition to the list. Or you know what is schedule means? Schedule means list. So it gave legal recognition to the list or schedule of castes and tribes marked out of special treatment by the caste. This is how terms scheduled caste and scheduled caste and scheduled tribes came into being. Now, if you know, if question will come like that, you know, from where scheduled tribes and scheduled terms came into being, then you have to say that it came out of the Government of India Act 1935, because they were classifying, you know, castes into different categories and giving them legal recognition. Okay, so I'm now going to talk about the last point. Thus, colonialism brought about major changes in the institution of caste. Perhaps means by and large, mostly, it would be more accurate to say that institution of caste underwent fundamental changes during the colonial period. Now, what do you mean by fundamental changes? Fundamental changes means basic changes that came in the institution of caste during the colonial period. So, I'm sure now you have understood everything regarding what happened with the institution of caste in the colonial era. So these I would say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. These 6 to 7 points are extremely important, and you don't need to, you know, look for you know, the content related to this particular concept from anywhere else. You just have to read the you know, slides here, and then I'm sure you will definitely understand everything regarding caste and colonialism. Okay. So I'm left with 4 minutes and 30 odd seconds. Now I'm going to talk about the caste in the present. Like, now we have studied caste in the past, we have studied caste during the colonial period. Now I'm going to study the caste in the present time. Now, what happened in the caste, institution of caste in the present time? Okay, look, there are two terms that you got to understand, that you got to put in your mind, that there were two concepts that M.N. Srinivas gave. M.N. Srinivas was a sociologist. M.N. Srinivas was sociologist from the state of Karnataka, you know, and he gave two terms, dominant caste, and the second one is your Sanskritization concepts, and you're going to study this term Sanskritization further in the chapter. And that's why I didn't try to teach you about this particular concept of Sanskritization, but you need to understand the concept of dominant caste here, because we are talking about the caste in the present. So this is the term that was coined by Amin Srinivas. You got to remember that. Now when I say dominant caste, then what does it mean? It means that there are certain features that give rise to dominant caste. Dominant caste has always a large population of numerical strength. Means when I say numerical strength, it means that a population or a particular group or particular community is existing in a large population. That's it, nothing more than that. When I talk about the land ownership, then it means that possession of the land, right? So when a particular group of people, they have a lot of possession of land, it means that they have got a lot of land ownership, and that is a specific feature of a dominant caste: large population, land ownership. Then the third point is that they have political power, and they don't only have political power, they have economic power as well. So there are certain things that straight away comes in our mind when we talk about the concept of dominant caste, like land ownership, large population, political power. Why political power? Because they are humongous, they are large in numbers, so they always get that political power as well. And they obviously, if they have got a lot of possession of land, they will always trying to derive that economic power out of that as well. So economic power, political power, land ownership, which also means possession of land, large group or large population means numerical strength. And I'm going to give you the examples of dominant castes that are there in our Indian nation, right? So Jats are there in Haryana and Punjab. We all know that. This is a very, I would say, caste that we used to, hear every now and then. So Jats are there in Haryana and Punjab. When I talk about Yadavs that are there in Bihar and UP, Patidars are there in Gujarat. Look, I have made this slide in such a way, and especially I've given the names in the slide, or formulated the slide in such a way that the states are coming in a very systematic way. Punjab and Haryana comes first, then UP and Bihar comes, then Gujarat comes, then Maharashtra comes, then Karnataka comes, then Andhra Pradesh comes. So these are the examples of dominant caste. Okay, so I don't think we'll get any time, extra time to complete anything else. So what happens? I will tell you. Jats are there in Haryana and Punjab, Yadavs are there in Bihar and UP, Patidars of Gujarat, Marathas of Maharashtra, Gokalikas of Karnataka, and Reddis and Kamas of Andhra Pradesh. So these all are the examples of caste in the present. Look, this is what, how we study. It's very important to study systematically. So they may ask you in the exams that write down the castes that are dominant in the India. So then you can give these examples, all right? Okay. So I think we have done enough. There is another concept that is remaining. Institution of caste is both visible and invisible. We will do it in the next class, means tomorrow at 12 p.m. Yes, 12 p.m. or 12 noon. And we have done a lot of things regarding the caste, and I'm sure you have understood everything regarding this chapter. In case you have not understood anything, you can text me and even call me to to sort your doubts, right? Okay. So I hope you have enjoyed this class, and now I'm going to stop the share. Okay, and I'm going to stop this share, and what else? I'll send you this PPT as well in case if you will need it, because I've already told you that you just need to study from this PPT, because I'm working very hard to make this PPT for all of you, and I'm sure you will also work hard as well with me, because I need a lot of cooperation. And if you will not work hard, then my hard work will be of no use. You got to remember this particular thing. I have to read your messages. I have to read your messages. Someone has texted.